I've got a frustrating topic to sort of talk about. It does really bother me. I just can't believe it's even become a thing. I just I'm so bothered in a sense because this shouldn't even be happening. It's completely bizarre, but it is happening. It's happening obviously in the US, but it's also happening in the UK. With people essentially taking on these bigoted views, which are literally fundamentally bigoted because they're not based on reason or logic alone, or even fact. So, yeah, I recently got dragged into a conversation which I didn't want to have about immigration. And yeah, this gets political, so if you don't like it, piss off. Yeah, don't need to make yourself known. There's no secret that I'm getting into politics, and there's a very good reason why. But there's a lot of outrage about things that there really shouldn't be outrage on. And I don't really know where to start with this. The ICE thing in America is just horrific. How people can quote unquote exercise authority to make America great again is like, it's fucking so dystopian, and obviously it's like fascist. It's a fascist dictatorship, literally. That's what it is. You're policing people for existing, and whether they're there like legally or not, it just doesn't matter to them. So it doesn't even make sense. Like, what are they even trying to do? And then they do something like throw them in concentration camps, which we've known about for years, by the way. No, these have always existed since Trump came into power, and people have just casually ignored them. You know, they don't see this as a problem, and they don't see it as getting as out of hand as, like, for example, Nazi Germany back in World War II, back when Hitler was in power. Because it literally can go that direction. But things get even more frustrating in that sense. People have this belief, and this was brought up in a conversation, that there is never anything wrong with ourselves, it's only to do with the people who came here, obviously from a foreign land. And there's a lot of problems with this. Myself being the illogical type, I tend to look into these and find a reason, but there isn't. There's nothing. Instead, what I see is what, like, grandpa or grandmother, I don't know if you call them actually, grandma. Okay, that's a word. It's like whatever they told you, and then it can be what your parents tell you as well, which is why you sometimes see young people even protesting against immigrants now, which is quite harrowing, because again, it's more complicated than people actually understand it to be, because most people just think it's a simple matter of, oh, they're coming here illegally just to take our jobs. No, there's a reason they're called asylum seekers. They're seeking refuge. They want to get away from a terrible situation. And with that happening to our own country, or to yourself, like, you'd want to leave, wouldn't you? You'd want to make things better, live a better life. And many people just don't answer that honestly. But the thing with the conversation that got me is they literally said they wouldn't care if they're in a war zone, which is just fucking crazy to me. It's literally, I call it psychopathic, and there's literally fascism. Oh shit, to deny someone asylum for being in a war zone and wanting to get out of that, including children, by the way, it's just so dystopian. And I don't know where this narrative comes from, that for some reason we need to be super elite with our race, our country, for some reason. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's always going to be a harmful attitude to have, because you won't have any friends. That sounds kind of silly. And I think like, oh, well, we're fine with having obviously white people friends and people of the same country, right? Why is there my all giant IMSA? Didn't know this is a thing. Huh. Anyway, yeah, I suppose they've always existed. Yeah. Like, ironically, that's kind of a thing as well. Because you do make friends in unexpected places. And at the point of allying with other countries and even allowing people into your own, even those who are probably at the wrong, and like, for example, Russians, if they're coming here for asylum seeking, then who are we to deny them? But the problem with the attitudes against people is that they assume everyone's the same. Not every Russian is going to side with Putin, for example. I'm lucky enough to have actually witnessed accounts of this where people explicitly deny what Putin stands for. And it's just really interesting. Yeah, I'm literally saying I've known people like that. Probably go into many more details other than that. But again, like, you can find nice people in any country, even fucking Saudi Arabia, which is like strictly homophobic and literally kills people for being gay. So, again, not everyone's a nice person, but I think those who are nice, those who are seeking a better life and not being like, I think it's nationalist, is it? Like the term for people who just want a country filled with their own nation? I don't know. But you do get nice people who are not obviously from the people just visiting, just not from our own countries. Simple as that. But you do get the bad ones every now and then, which is the next point. It's about how people somehow view these very specific events, obviously atrocities as well, as being the foundation for keeping people out. Using this one person as an example for why they should be not allowed to exist. Because this isn't about them coming here, it's about them not existing. Because that's what this narrative is about. Whenever I hear anti-immigration, this or that, like, it doesn't matter, it's all linked to the same thing. You want a genocide so you can replace them with yourself, which is just completely selfish and dystopian. But if we did this, we wouldn't have amazing things in our cultures. Like, people forget that in our cultures there's a lot of things that are linked to, obviously, people of different country of origin, foreign people. In the UK, Indian food is very popular. But we wouldn't have that if we denied them entry. We wouldn't have that if, like, we just killed them all. And why would we fucking take it for ourselves? Like, it's just so wrong. It's just so dystopian. Again, like, fascist dictatorship, it's literally that. It's just disgusting behaviour, and then what do you do when that's gone? Suddenly, you have yourself to blame. You essentially eliminated a part of the world that made ours better and more interesting. And then who do you blame next? Like, again, there's no forethought, there's no thought about the consequences of these actions and these beliefs. And I've seen it in even elderly people, for example. There's a lot of those beliefs in them. Even those who sort of claim to be sort of liberal, which I doubt they are, deep down. But again, it all leads me to this belief I've had before about everyone has their own idea of how a country should be run. It's definitely the wrong way of thinking about it. Just kind of ironic, because there is no right way. Everything you do that's good for you, good for even a majority of people, is going to be bad for someone else. and that also could be a majority of people, we don't know. Again, it's not as simple as that though. It's not as simple as shutting off borders, because if you do that, then again you lose out on learning the culture, you lose out on friends. You could even spark a war, like with what Trump's doing to obviously illegal immigrants. What could happen out of that is a country will go to war with him, because he can literally turn around and say, "Yeah, let's gas all the Mexicans." Like that's literally something you can say, something you can order, and it would happen. Like it's not fucking libelous. It's something that definitely could happen. And so, yeah, you're going to spark a war from that. You're going to cause a retaliation for killing innocent people who just wanted asylum from a certain country. Yeah, like, it's just a human rights violation, objectively. Because not only have you tortured them, you've now killed them. You've separated families, you've tortured children. Like, what's more to say? This is just morally wrong. There are people who unfortunately seem to be apathetic, which I'm getting onto eventually talk about. Yeah, but the entire conversation just never makes sense. It's always based on assumption. It's never based on reason. It's never anyone else's fault. I mean, it's never your own fault. That's what I meant. But it's always someone else's fault in their eyes, which is quite harrowing. This also leads to another common thing I see in obviously these talking points. People of the belief again that what they say is true, is not 100% correct. It's not up to obviously scrutiny or objection. And this is the dangerous mindset that pretty much everyone has nowadays, which does need to stop. Like, I guarantee you, if I was put into politics right now, I could definitely make some changes that no other politician would, even on the sides that I definitely align with. The problem is people don't see it that way and instead view it as like a whole sort of thing, like a one size fits all. That's not how it works, and this is the problem with politics. Again, money talks as well, so that has influence. I wouldn't be persuaded by money. You know, I wouldn't even want a big paycheck. I just want one that gets me by. Simple as that. That gives the rest to charities and funding things that are important. Again, people have their own idea of how to run something right, and that's my idea. You know, I put people first. Over myself, I wouldn't take bribes. I'd also put in like laws, for example, that strictly prohibits certain shit. I'll stop bribing and make that a legal offence up to, I'd say, like 90% of earning wage, essentially, as a sort of fine. That way, it actually puts a dent in a billionaire's pocket when they do fund something, start to bribe people. And it might dissuade them, it might not, but it might put them out of pocket as well. So, there's that. And also make it illegal in the same way to sort of dismantle a company just because of that. I'll force it to change hands to like the next imposition, I guess, like the higher up. There's different niche things, obviously it needs more research and thought, consideration, which a lot of people don't have. And sort of getting onto the apathy now. People, this is a one thing I noticed as well, assumptions again. People have their own idea and it's not based on reason. It's not based on anything. And the evidence they do have is such a minuscule amount of evidence. It's the same line as like trans women in sports. There is no evidence that this is harmful. And there are a lot of tests that have to be done before a trans woman goes into sports. Because when a trans woman transitions, their biology becomes that of a woman. And that's why they can't be allowed in sports. There's no physical advantage. If anything, and I've seen this a lot in like conversations, they can get weaker than the actual biological women, the ones assigned female at birth. So, literally, these arguments never make any sense. That's the common thing I've noticed, anyway. It's like when people say they're teaching kids how to be gay in school. No. One, you're not in school. Two, if you're homeschooling your kids, which, by the way, is a situation I was faced with as well, you're not going to know what goes on in a school unless you hear it from parents. But even then, the parents can exaggerate shit. And again, people can be liars just to convenience their own argument or their own lives. Like, that's just something that people do. It's just sickening. You know, I've had plenty of horrific cases of like people doing good things and then being arrested for it, being tried as a criminal, of having committed like a moral atrocity. It happens way more often than you think. I think that does sort of lead into the apathy epidemic, I'm calling this. So it just seems to be a reality that a lot of the people who are apathetic towards people and just don't view, again, these, like, for example, asylum seekers, immigrants, as human. These people are the problem. The ones treating them like an enemy, like a problem. And this is just objectively true. Yeah, it's just so fucking sickening. And you can't even claim to be kind or empathetic, because that doesn't work alongside, sink the boats, stop the boats from coming in, those sort of arguments. I've watched like 2 news articles on this, by the way. All the comments are filled with the same bigotry. Zero evidence, zero reason, there's nothing. Like, they haven't even pointed to anything. There's like no, like, I would understand the argument, for example, just to put this out there, the goalpost. You know, if it's like immigrants are taking our jobs, they're taking our women and stuff, like, if you have a study on this, where someone has actually compiled something, got the statistics of how many illegal immigrants have taken jobs and obviously been in marriages since going to another country illegally, then yeah, like, I'll start to think there's probably a case here. There's probably a reason to believe it. That's how simple it is. But where is the evidence? There isn't any. So there's no such thing. A lot of these claims that people are putting out there are not based on reason or logic, again. Because you can only have reason or logic, really, through that with solid evidence. A lot of lies can be based on the truth to an extent. But this, again, isn't always the case, and you have to remember as well. And people just seem to get baited a lot by news and stuff, news articles and outlets and just biased channels in general, even biased people. But these places often exaggerate these topics, these stories, make them out that they're worse than they actually are. And really what they are isn't actually that bad at all. You know, one of the stories I watched, which actually had terrible reporting, it was about like the protests basically helping asylum seekers versus the anti-asylum seekers, essentially. I thought the first thing they bring up in this story was how 2 asylum seekers have been alleged or accused of raping someone. Which is just, what? Yeah, they're bad people, but not all of them are bad. Now, how many of these? Like 2 people. How many asylum seekers are there? Well, it's probably like tens of thousands. So it's about the same as our own fucking population. Like, what's the point here? Why even bring this up? Because like, we condemn the same people, assumingly. I don't think the people accusing them of it are probably exempt, but the point here is that it's such a small population, it just doesn't even mean anything. You're going to have bad people regardless. Like, in any group of a large number of people, there's going to be bad people. It's just something that objectively happens. Like, you can't expect people also coming from those bad situations to be kind to others when you're being nasty to them. I remember watching a documentary called They're Trying to Kill Us. It was about like how minority groups in the US are being essentially forced into poverty and bad situations just because they're black. They're literally black skinned. And the conclusion from that was that other than corporations just putting them there, like capitalism, billionaires obviously from conservative sides, there's also the issue of people's attitudes, like police and just people like passing by, for example, and how they would treat them. And that led them to these problems to begin with. And then you've got their own infighting, where that can sometimes lead to more problems. Because they're all competing for something, obviously. They're trying to fight for their lives, and then suddenly they get into gang warfare and drugs. Again, that happens because they're not being treated properly. If they're given proper housing, and even a sustainable job, they won't be in that situation. And then there'd be no stigma. Simple as that. Genuinely hard-working people would probably be kind as well. But then instead, you're putting them in these bad situations just to make an example. An example of what exactly, though? That's the question here. So, apathy is a really bad thing, and a lot of people don't view these people as human, which is the other worrying thing. It's the thing that really gets me about this topic. Because, yeah, objectively, these people are humans, but you're treating them like fucking livestock. Like, they're so insignificant to you that you probably eat them. Like, that's literally how it sounds. We gas them in billions, much like animal agriculture. Like, you do anything just to fucking get rid of them and so absolve yourself of any wrongdoing. Which is the other point I was getting to. Because yeah, it's literally scapegoating. And I think as a conversation I had on Reddit, tried to anyway, but it's like parroting. It's like the term. People can copy from one another and again try to absolve themselves of these. Obviously, it's a lot more crimes, more atrocities. And yeah, well, I've been a human rights activist for only like 6 or 7 years. And yeah, I've been betrayed by people. There's no fucking doubt about that. So, the first time I ever moved house, I was put with 2 very dodgy people. One of them more dodgy than the others. The other one was okay. But they weren't foreign. It's just normal white British people. And the one who was an arsehole to me, threatened to kill me and my family. It's just completely nasty. But then I've also met strange people as well who like support me because obviously I'm disabled. I've met good and bad people there as well. And it does weigh a lot on my mind. But using that as a grounds to essentially discriminate against everyone else is not going to help. It's going to make things worse. And it's just a dangerous mindset to have to begin with. If I was suddenly treated badly by like a black man or like, for example, a Ukrainian, just a hypothetical, I'm not going to hold that against the entire population of black people or Ukrainian people, because that's just unreasonable. And a lot of the time people haven't even encountered or discussed foreign people. And those that have will just pretend to fucking ignore the fact that they have met nice people. It's just another thing I've noticed as well when talking to people like that. Like they'll completely ignore that they've met plenty of foreign people who are nice, and then suddenly focus on this one person who caused problems for them. And the thing, like one case I heard was actually from someone I know. It was like going on holiday and essentially having their children not necessarily groomed, but basically spoken to by foreigners. And yeah, like that's a niche case, and obviously it's not a good situation to be in. It's like, holy fuck, this is just such a bad example. I 100% wouldn't like it. It's called Empathy. Again, this as the reason for condemning hundreds of thousands who are not the same person. It's just objectively wrong. And really, there's no argument against that. It's something I think conceded myself in trying to even share the same views. Because yeah, I used to be anti-immigrant myself. Even not, I didn't really have good reason, so that's probably why it fell flat. But then I believe it's sort of similar things. I used to think people were taking jobs. But in the end, only the evidence can speak for itself, and because there's no evidence of it, or very little, there's no reason to believe it. Again, unreasonable belief is unreasonable belief, and everyone is probably the mindset of the most dangerous people. The people with the unreasonable beliefs. So that needs addressing. Anyway, I've spoken enough and I've got to get on my stuff. It's just another human rights issue and it needs to be addressed. I fucking hate that I have to have these conversations, but here we are. And, I'm looking for reasons why I could be wrong, places I could be wrong. But as I said, I've set the goalpost, score it. If you can't, and tough shit, it means you're wrong. Simple as that. I'll admit when I'm wrong, because obviously there's either an ethical concern or just an evidence-based reason. It's really as simple as that. So yeah, thanks for listening. See everyone another time.